Hello, my name is Jesse Hoey. I'm a professor in the School of Computer Science at the University of Waterloo. And this short video will give an introduction to the class COGSCI 600, which is a graduate seminar class in cognitive science. So really what I'm going to talk about in this short video is what is cognitive science. It's really fundamentally an interdisciplinary research area. It involves many different disciplines: philosophy, anthropology, psychology, neuroscience, and so on. And if we think about what are we trying to do with cognitive science, really a very broad definition of it is that it's the study of the human mind. But more precisely, we are trying to answer a number of related questions. What is the mind? How is it related to the body? What function does it have? Could we build an artificial mind? How are minds connected to each other? What is culture and language? And finally, how are ethics and public policy involved in this? The field of cognitive science is vast, and it is growing. For example, people are very interested in understanding issues about sustainability. How does the human mind deal with that? Perhaps by you taking this class, you might be able to connect new domains that people haven't thought about in cognitive science yet. Let's look at these questions in a little bit more detail. The first one is, what is the mind? So this is really a philosophical question. However, neuroscientists are also very interested in it. Where does it lie in the body? Is it in the body? There are many questions here, and even asking the questions is very difficult. Perhaps something a bit more tangible is, how does the nervous system work? There's been a tremendous amount of research on this in the last 20 or 30 years due to the increased availability of scanning mechanisms, of ways of measuring things that are going on in the brain, such as this picture from an MRI machine. So neuroscientists have found out a great deal about how the brain's networks are functioning. How do they work together, and how do they produce what we see or what we think of as the mind or as consciousness? Then we can ask, well, what does the mind do? Well, what is its purpose? Well, we can think about anything that humans do as an example of something a mind can do. For example, driving race cars. Driving race cars is an incredibly difficult thing to do. It involves an enormous speed. The mind, the brain, has to react to things incredibly fast. So we might think, well, how does it do that? One way we might be able to approach that question is by trying to build artificial versions of it. So for example, this is the NVIDIA Formula One automated race car. Can it perform in the same way that a human does? Well, we shall see. In trying to build an artificial mind, we learn something about what a mind could be, because we learn what is involved in doing the things that a mind can do. Then we can ask, how are minds connected to each other? So we know that we sort of understand something about what other people are feeling or thinking, or we think we do at least. Somehow minds are connected together. How is this even possible? Is it like this? Are we sending invisible laser beams into each other's eyes and creating showers of sparks in our brains? Well, probably not. But our minds are connected now in a lot of different ways. And mostly, if you think about it, they're connected by social networks. Here I'm showing some artificial social networks, or at least mediated by these devices, which are very popular nowadays, but social networks exist everywhere. And somehow this connects minds together in ways that make the connected mind more powerful than any individual mind. This is really the domain of sociology. However, recently neuroscientists are getting interested in this and doing measurements on brains in tandem. So two people talking to one another, how are their neural patterns connected to each other? Social networks is also the domain of complexity science. These are very, very highly complex systems. Trying to understand how they work is a very, very deep and challenging problem. Artificial intelligence is also starting to tackle these same kinds of connected mind systems. And then, of course, this brings us to wider issues of what is culture. So here's a picture of my colleague Andreas Schneider, who's a sociologist, and he studies different cultures in Southeast Asia and some of their interesting practices. These is really the domain of anthropology and sociology, but of course it also involves language. And then this brings in linguistics, neuroscience again, and artificial intelligence has become very interested in whether or not we can generate and understand language. The final thing that we will touch upon is what impact does the mind and the theories about the mind that we have on ethics and public policy. So the way that we think about the mind, the way that we think about how humans are thinking, leads to differences in our views on ethics and differences in public policy. So this again brings in sociology, economics, anthropology, and now political science. These questions are becoming very, very important now as artificial intelligence becomes more prevalent. People are starting to ask, what is the ethical role of this in our society? The course will take place in a single 3-hour session every week. These will consist of invited lectures by professors across different disciplines. There will be weekly readings and discussions, there will be written summaries, there will be a project and a proposal and a presentation. The assessment you can see here, and I do give 5% of the marks for participation. There are no prerequisites, everyone is welcome, and for CS grad students this counts as an 800 level course. Your weekly summaries are due the day before the lecture. These are short, 300 to 400 words, and they'll be graded pass or fail. Any serious good faith effort will pass. Participation can be either in class or online. The course is in person. I like to encourage a lot of in-class discussion, but you can also discuss things on the Slack group. Basically attending every session will get you 3 out of 5 marks, and if you also participate regularly, you'll get an extra 5, the full 5 marks. If you are absent for 3 or more times, this will be considered grounds for failing the class. The project will be individual, although I will make exceptions for some groups. I will not accept literature reviews if they are only descriptive. You will write a proposal where you state your research question, some thesis and methodology, how you're going to do it, some explanation of the interdisciplinarity, and then an initial bibliography. Then you will submit a draft report and then give a presentation and submit a final report. You can find more information about the class on the course webpage, and I hope to see you all this semester in class.